Are you trained and proficient in the ways of prayer in the spiritual life? You ought to be. You ought to be an expert on the spiritual life. You don't have to go to a university to do that. Listen, our faith and the spiritual life is not rocket science. Jesus called poor fishermen as the apostles, the first bishops. It's not rocket science. There's no excuse not to know your faith. When I began preaching, I knew that there was a terrible lack of education in the church. The average Catholic lay faithful doesn't know a thing about their faith. And I set about to prove it. Every place I went doing missions, I gave a little test at the end, 10 questions, very simple. The average mark was 42. 42%, now that's a failing grade. Very simple question, what are the 10 commandments? What are the 10 commandments? You know what, now that's kindergarten stuff. Any child about to make First Holy Communion has to know what the 10 commandments are. I'll guarantee you, I could take a microphone, come down here among all these good Catholic men, and I wouldn't have any trouble finding 1,000 who didn't get it. Why not? Well, you haven't paid too much attention to it. You haven't studied it. You'd fail the exam. You should be an expert in spiritual things. There's no excuse anymore to not know your faith. You ever been motivated? You ever been highly motivated? You have to be highly motivated to be a soldier and to go to war. You have to be highly motivated to acquire the skills and the knowledge necessary to survive in combat. Well, you've got to be highly motivated in this war, because this is the war to end all wars. You win this war, you go to heaven. You lose this war, you go to hell, period. Exclamation point. I can't get around that. If there was an easier way, a softer way, I would have found it by now, and I'd pass it on to you. There is no easier way. That's it. That is in-your-face truth, and we have to acknowledge reality. Learn your faith, man. Many of you are the head of families. Learn your faith, because you can't give what you do not have.